On this week's NESN Patriots podcast, we will recap Patriots' second week of preseason, preview their third week of preseason, and talk about all of the crazy roster moves that have been going on in the past week. Hello and welcome to the NESN Patriots podcast. I am Doug Kide, joined as always by Zach Cox. Zach, how are you doing?
Doing great, Doug. How are you?
I am doing very well. A lot has changed since the last time that we recorded.
Very busy week.
One of these podcasts. We were in Tennessee for joint practices against the Titans. We watched the Patriots-Titans game, and then the Patriots added 3 talented wide receivers, basically, off of their reserve lists. So let's get into that first before we get into the whole Titans thing and everything, because that's almost outdated. We'll tell you a little bit more about that. But the most recent news, basically, is that Julian Edelman is off of the non-football injury list with his broken thumb. That is healed, as expected. Josh Gordon was conditionally reinstated off of the suspended list, which was... We just basically had no idea when that was going to happen. It happened to come on Friday evening, really. And then the final bit of news is that Demaryius Thomas is also off the physically unable to perform list. I think that most people expected him to stay on that list through week 6 of the regular season, which would have meant they would have come back week 7. He's back now, though. So basically the Patriots have thrust Julian Edelman, Josh Gordon, and Demaryius Thomas back in their wide receiver group. I will mention that Gordon still is on the non-football injury list, so there is still a little bit of uncertainty around him. But really, in those joint practices against Titans, we were seeing a wide receiver core of Jacoby Myers and then basically no one else. It was Ryan Davis, Gunnar Olszewski, Dontrell Inman, who has since been cut, Damone Patterson, and Braxton Berrios. And then, you add these 3 names, Edelman, Gordon, and Thomas, into that group, and suddenly, I wrote it today, the Patriots have one of the best wide receiver core in the NFL. And you can argue that, and you can say that Edelman's another year older. You can argue and say that Josh Gordon isn't dependable. You can argue and say that Demaryius Thomas is coming off a torn Achilles. But, it's so deep that you still have to call it one of the best wide receiver core in the NFL, because you're talking about N'Keal Harry's a first-round pick as your number 4 receiver. You're talking about Phillip Dorsett or Jacoby Myers as your number 5 receiver. It's just a pretty wild group of wide receivers right now.
I would certainly say it has the potential to be one of the best wide receiving cores in the NFL. There is a fair amount of uncertainty still, not nearly as much uncertainty as we saw last week on the field down there in Nashville when Tom Brady was throwing to guys who most likely are not going to make the team. But still, Demaryius Thomas, coming off the Achilles, has been not really looked like himself the last year or two, even before that injury. Josh Gordon, you obviously never know how long he's going to kind of stay on the Patriots active roster. Edelman, you mentioned, a year older. Jacoby Myers, we've loved what we've seen from him so far, still untested. And then N'Keal Harry is kind of dealing with an injury, and I think both of us don't really expect him to be kind of a 1,000-yard receiver as a rookie. But that list of names is very, very impressive. And then you're going to add probably one more to that group, most likely Phillip Dorsett, maybe Maurice Harris, maybe Braxton Berrios. But top to bottom there, if those 1 through 6 plus Matthew Slater, who's only going to play on special teams, you've got to feel pretty good about that group going into the season. Yeah,
basically how I put together the list of the best wide receiver core was using Pro Football Reference's approximate value metric, which is imperfect. I'm not exactly sure, how it works, but you can use it for every single wide receiver in the NFL. And basically what I also did was project out, what a typical first-round wide receiver, his approximate value is, what a second-round receiver, third-round receiver, whatever. So Julian Edelman had a 9 approximate value last season. And that's taking into account that he missed 4 games with a suspension. Josh Gordon had a 7 approximate value, and that's taking into account that he missed 4 games also with a suspension, and then, he wasn't here for the first couple weeks. Demaryius Thomas had a 5 approximate value, which, he wasn't himself last year, and I think we're all kind of assuming that he won't be himself again this year. N'Keal Harry, his projected approximate value was also 5, and that's the same approximate value that Aaron Dobson had as a rookie, that Deion Branch had as a rookie. So it's not like we're projecting him out to be a 1,000-yard receiver. We're basically, projecting him out to be a 500-yard receiver, which is probably pretty fair as to what his standards are going to be as a rookie. So it's not even like I was taking this list and saying this is, the peak that every receiver on this roster can reach, their ceiling that they can reach. Every one of those players already kind of came with a capped ceiling, either based on what they did last season by missing 4 games, or by projecting out what a first-round receiver might look like in the Patriots offense. And they were still ranked as the 4th best starters. That was, wide receivers 1 through 3, and the 5th best starters and the 4th best wide receiver core as a whole. And I think that core as a whole is really this group's strength, because you are talking about Philip Dorsett, who might be a number 3 or 4 receiver somewhere else, being the Patriots' number 5 receiver. You're talking about Jacoby Myers, who, has really impressed so far, and I didn't even include him in that group. So really 1 through 6, whatever way that shakes out for the Patriots, it's going to be a really deep group. And even if some of those question marks don't hit, you still have a deep, depth, or that's a terrible way of putting it, but you still have depth in that receiver core.
Absolutely, and I think that's going to be a really big focus this season, especially because we don't really know what the tight end group is going to look like at the moment. Nobody has really stood out in that area this summer. I mean, even Matt LaCosse, who I think we both still think will probably be their week 1 starter, assuming that he's healthy enough to do so. He hasn't really looked anything above sort of pedestrian this summer. Yeah. You've got guys like Lance Kendricks in there, who had a pretty underwhelming season in Green Bay last year. Ryan Izzo, who hasn't proven anything at the NFL level yet.
Ben Watson, who's suspended.
Ben Watson, yep. So if you look at that group and you figure maybe the Patriots aren't going to be able to get nearly as much out of that tight end unit as they have in years past, obviously with Rob Gronkowski in the mix, I think it could be a real kind of big year for these wide receivers.
Definitely. And I mean, the running backs, I think, are certainly going to be heavily involved as well.
Absolutely.
There's definitely a possibility that we see some of that 20 personnel where the Patriots have 2 running backs and 3 wide receivers on the field at the same time. And speaking about that tight end group, I think that, when Ben Watson comes back, I think he probably will be the starter in that group. They'll at least see how he looks, as a 38-year-old tight end, what he's got left in the tank. But since Matt LaCosse has missed time, since he wasn't, the greatest blocker anyway, since even coming in here, it's not like he was Travis Kelce as a pass catcher. Like, he's got a pretty limited ceiling. I think that our buddy Nick Underhill talked to him, and he described himself as a utility player, which is definitely not the greatest sign.
Yeah, he had, 27 catches for Denver last year? Somewhere right around there?
250 yards, 1 touchdown. I would almost feel better putting Ryan Izzo in there as the starter, because at least that Ryan Izzo can be a good blocker. He's going to be limited as a pass catcher. I think that he probably still, at this point in his career, has a higher upside than guys like, Hooman or Matthew Mulligan or the types of guys like that, where maybe he could catch 25 passes this season for 250 yards, but then you're also getting the blocking skills out of him. So if I were constructing the Patriots depth chart at tight end, I would probably put Izzo above LaCosse, because at least there's a guaranteed skill that he possesses in that group. Whereas LaCosse, you're still kind of projecting out a little bit as far as what he can be as a pass catcher. So I don't know. It's definitely an interesting group. And I even might put Lance Kendricks over Matt LaCosse, just because he's got more of a proven track record as a pass catcher as well.
Definitely. And Ryan Izzo has looked very good as a blocker so far this summer through those 2 preseason games.
Let's backtrack a little bit and talk about both those joint practices with the Titans and that preseason game against Tennessee. It feels like forever ago, even though the game was like 3 days ago or 4 days ago.
Time
and the
moves
practice
strangely in the
ago.
preseason, man. It's weird. It feels like we were in Detroit a month and a half ago.
It really does. But what would you say, I guess, your biggest takeaways from just last week in general are?
Well, my biggest takeaway from last week was the fact that the Patriots don't have any wide receivers, and that has now changed drastically in the last couple of days. Beyond that, I've liked the continued emergence of Chase Winovich.
Yeah.
He's really he was a guy who flashed a lot in practice against Detroit, had a really good game against the Lions in that preseason opener, was good in practice. I didn't really notice him all that much in those Titans joint practices. He had an interception.
There's a lot going on.
There's a whole lot going on, so it's hard to really kind of track certain kind of position groups unless you're staring at them for the entirety of the game. But that game against the Titans was one of the more dominant individual performances I've seen in a long time from Chase Winovich. I mean, we came home from Nashville early. We were not actually at the game, so I was watching the game on TV, and it felt like every 2 minutes I was rewinding the television broadcast to be like, all right, here's a good clip of Chase Winovich. I'll share this out on Twitter. Ended up having like a dozen of them. That guy was all over the field. So far through 2 preseason games, he has the most total pressures of any player in the NFL, according to Pro Football Focus. His Pro Football Focus grade in this game was, I think, 10.3, which is insanely good. Anytime you get into double digits, that's some real kind of elite level performance. Now, who knows where he'll kind of slot in once the regular season starts. I wouldn't be surprised if he's not a starter once the regular season starts, but they kind of get him in on some of those third down situational pass rush packages. He'll definitely be in there on special teams, but so far what we've seen from him, it's been thoroughly impressive. And then just the rookie class as a whole, this draft class, it seems like kind of the polar opposite of what we saw last year, where the Patriots really didn't get much out of their draft class at all outside of Sony Michel and a little bit of Juwan Bentley. So far, 6, 7, 8 guys from this class are really making an impact.
Yeah, for sure. I think that, it's still obviously very early, but I would say that Winovich probably by, midseason or by the end of the season has a chance to be one of those top 11 starters in the Patriots defense. Basically, he would be competing with someone like Juwan Bentley. And, I mean, it would be tough to argue that Bentley could make a bigger impact than Winovich based on what we've seen so far this preseason, based on what we saw from Bentley last preseason and early in the season. Bentley definitely a solid player, but, if I have my choice, I think that, Winovich and Kyle Van Noy on the outside at outside linebacker, and then Jamie Collins and Dante Hightower there at inside linebacker, I think that, if Winovich continues progressing, that's probably a better, 4 linebacker core than it would be with Bentley replacing Winovich. There's still a long way to go, but Winovich has been fantastic. I think that another topic, worth talking about, we talked about wide receivers off the start, but Jacoby Myers had another monster game in that preseason game against the Titans. He was clearly the Patriots' best wide receiver during their joint practices with Tennessee. And it's a complicated wide receiver core, and I would still, based on what Myers did in training camp and what we've seen from the preseason so far, he's more of a proven commodity than guys like N'Keal Harry and like Demaryius Thomas. So I would almost consider having him still be a week 1 starter, despite the fact that those guys are probably going to be back in the mix by that point. I don't know what the Patriots will ultimately do, but I think there's a really high upside with a guy like Myers. And going back to the wide receivers real quick, we'll keep talking about the Titans week in a second, but the Demaryius Thomas activation is definitely interesting timing, because that means that we don't get to see Demaryius Thomas in practice.
Yep.
Also means the Patriots have a very limited window to watch Demaryius Thomas in practice. And basically, Demaryius Thomas is getting activated around the same time that Eric Decker was getting cut last season. I don't remember the exact, what date Eric Decker was out of there. But
I believe he was cut after the 3rd preseason game last year.
So it basically is right around the same timing. And I think that a lot of people, and myself included, kind of equated Demaryius Thomas in this offense to, an Eric Decker type or a Reggie Wayne type or a Nate Washington, Michael Jenkins. You can go down the list with those veteran receivers who basically had the same accolades as Demaryius Thomas when they came to the Patriots, or around the same age, and it didn't pan out. But there's a smaller window to watch Demaryius Thomas, and I feel like the Patriots almost have to keep Demaryius Thomas at this point just to get a broad enough scope to see what he can add to the offense. I mean, if he came back in practice yesterday and was horrendous and, was completely behind and didn't look like himself, was slow, sure, you cut him. But I think that with this limited window, you almost have to carry him into the earliest part of the season to see what he has, both in practice and during games, to get a big enough scope to see what he could add to the offense. I don't think that you can put him in the same category as those other guys.
No, I agree. I mean, I was talking about this on Twitter last night, and I was getting some messages from people saying Demaryius Thomas isn't a roster lock on this team. I don't even know if he'll make the team. I wouldn't consider him a Julian Edelman, N'Keal Harry level roster lock. If he does get cut at some point within these next 2 weeks, it's not going to be kind of a monumental surprise to anybody. But just the way that they've handled him this whole summer, bringing him on the road to Detroit, bringing him on the road to Tennessee, activating him from the PUP list this week, when they could have easily kept him on that list, let him continue to kind of work his way back and do whatever he can on the side, and then kind of see what he looks like down the road in week 7. The fact that they activated him and they want to see him on the field now, it seems like a waste if they keep him for 2 weeks and then cut him. I don't know. Like you said, maybe he looks terrible. Maybe they wanted to have him on the field now because they're unsure and they really want to see what he can do on the field. I just kind of view it a different way. I view it as they've really liked what they've seen from him so far. From what we've seen, he seems to be moving well. Obviously, it's a very limited sample size. But, yeah, I would be very surprised if Demaryius Thomas is not on this team in week 1. And that creates, as we mentioned before, a tough kind of roster crunch at the end when you have basically 6 guys, not including Matthew Slater, that are not roster locks, but very, very, very kind of as close as you can get to roster locks. It's going to make it difficult for guys like Philip Dorsett down the line.
Yeah, and not only to make the roster, but to make an impact when they're actually on the roster. I think that another thing with Thomas is you can't read too much into this, but, I mean, him and Tom Brady have seemed to get pretty close during the summer that they've been together. Like you said, Demaryius Thomas has been on the road. He's constantly been around the team. He's been around in practice. And we've even kind of seen Tom Brady, him kind of throwing off to the side, not running any routes or anything. But it seems like Brady has definitely taken a liking to him, and that they've tried to put him in that, in that same group with Tom Brady as much as possible. So I think that there's, I think Brady probably has looked at Demaryius Thomas through the years as someone that you would probably like to throw to. There's a clip in the actual preseason game. I'm bringing it up right now. You guys can't watch it, but it was of Brady, Demaryius Thomas, and Kyle Van Noy all laughing and joking together on the sideline, and Thomas and Van Noy are like dying laughing at everything that Tom Brady is saying. And it was just kind of a 5-second clip during the game that they showed during the preseason, but there's definitely a connection there, and that can only help when a player is thrust back into the offense when they're actually in the game. If there's already a friendship there, and if based on what Thomas has gleaned during meetings or during studying the playbook, if he's already taking some of Tom Brady's trust already.
Definitely. And in recent years with some of those veteran wide receivers that you mentioned that didn't pan out here, you notice a kind of disconnect between them and Tom Brady, whether them just being kind of not getting onto the field with the first-team offense, or in the case of Eric Decker last year, they just never really looked like they were in sync. Right. Now, again, we haven't seen Demaryius Thomas run through any actual plays with the Patriots, so maybe that is the case when he actually gets onto the field. But, yeah, everything that we've seen really since the summer began and we've been able to kind of observe from afar, it seems positive, and it seems trending toward the direction that Demaryius Thomas will be on this team in week 1.
So going back to the Titans, like I said we would do, some of those other rookies who did stand out in that game, it was the first chance that we got to see Damien Harris, the running back. I thought that
very good.
He looked really good in that game. He had 14 carries for 80 yards, I think. Didn't get in the end zone, but he came pretty close on a couple plays.
4 catches.
I mean, it's an interesting debate there to see who will be the number 3 running back on this team between Damien Harris and Rex Burkhead. Burkhead is always hurt, and he really had a pretty bad season last year when he was actually on the field. He was not dependable really until the postseason. He was averaging about 3 yards per carry. I would almost say keep Burkhead as sort of an emergency back. And obviously we'll need to see what we see out of Damien Harris throughout the rest of the preseason, but he was definitely a guy who stood out in that game. Isaiah Wynn, who was a first-round pick last year, played left tackle for the first time since last season. I thought that he definitely looked good in that game. Byron Cowart, the Patriots' 5th-round defensive tackle, had a sack on what was like the 3rd play of the game.
Yeah, destroyed Roger Saffold.
Yeah.
That was probably the most impressive overall play that I've seen this preseason.
Yeah, and Roger Saffold is a high-paid guard, so that was...
Started every game for the Rams last year. He's a very good player.
Definitely an impressive thing for him to do. And Joanne Williams, Patriots' 2nd-round cornerback, really kind of locked down Corey Davis, which is a feat unto itself because Stephon Gilmore, I think he might have been sick during this game, but I think it was week 10 last year, he really struggled against Corey Davis. He allowed a touchdown. He almost allowed 100 yards to him. So
it was Stephon Gilmore's only bad game last year,
basically. Pretty much. And Joanne Williams was targeted twice against Davis, and he had 2 pass breakups in those 2 targets. So definitely good things overall out of that rookie class, which I don't know how much these guys will see the field this year. Jarrett Sims, another one who he could have thrown at least 1 pick six, but he rebounded well and had a really nice, pretty touchdown thrown into Damone Patterson. So overall, like I said, I don't know how much we'll actually see this rookie class this year because the Patriots do have a stacked roster, but all of the early returns have been positive.
Yeah, we should also mention Jake Bailey, the fifth-round punter, who has successfully beaten out Ryan Allen for the spot on the roster. Ryan Allen was cut this week. It was kind of a tough situation for a lot of the players in the locker room, it sounded like, talking to Matthew Slater and some of the other core special teamers. They really liked Ryan Allen. He was here for a long time. He won 3 Super Bowls, but watching them, I mean, neither of us are full-blown punting experts, but just watching both of them on the field this summer, it was pretty clear that Jake Bailey's kind of a cut above. This, if any of you guys go to a Patriots game this year, just show up early, go to the warm-ups, and just watch Jake Bailey punt. It's something special. This kid's leg is outrageous. Yeah,
it creates an awkward situation when the Patriots always have a group of special teamers who are together for a really long time. So, and they're basically always around each other. Like they're basically set apart from anyone else on the team during practice, where it's always the 3 of them. Their lockers are right next to each other, and I think they always become really close. So a few years ago when Danny Aiken was cut, that created definitely an awkward situation. I think when you got a guy like Joe Cardona coming in, he's definitely, became very good friends with Steven Gostkowski and Ryan Allen. But now in this competition, even between Ryan Allen and Jake Bailey, it was those 4 players always together. So then you're just thrusting in this new guy, and then when he beats out the other guy, I don't know. I think there's always, I don't know, animosity might be a strong word, but I think it definitely does create an awkward situation when you put a new special teams player into that group. And I know that they always kind of see it coming, all that stuff, but that doesn't make it any easier for that group when they do have to boot out someone else for a new guy.
Definitely, especially on special teams, as you mentioned. They really kind of operate in their own silo. It's basically the entire team is doing something, and then the 3, or in this case 4 special teamers, the specialists, are sometimes even off on another field by themselves. So that's going to be a very awkward situation. Ryan Allen was able to get through it last offseason when he beat out Corey Bojorquez in the same kind of setting. But yeah, the writing was kind of on the wall for Allen as soon as the Patriots traded up to draft Jake Bailey, and then again what we've seen from him this summer, it seemed like the pretty obvious choice. So I'm sure Ryan Allen will end up somewhere.
Yeah.
Tom Brady said on WEI the other day he fully expects Allen to land another job soon, because this is a guy who had one of the best games of his career in Super Bowl 53 just a couple months ago. So still a very good player, but definitely the correct move here for the Patriots.
Looking forward to this week. On Thursday, there is a preseason game, Patriots and Panthers. I think that we expect to see most or all of the Patriots starters in this game. So a few things that I'll be looking for with Tom Brady at quarterback is simply who is going to be his starting wide receivers, because I mean, we've talked about Edelman's back, but he's only back on 2 days of practice. Demaryius Thomas is back. He's only back on 1 day of practice. N'Keal Harry still might be banged up from a week ago. He's been out at practice, but we don't know how involved he's been. So we might still be, and Josh Gordon's still on the non-football injury list. So we might still be talking about, Jacoby Myers as being the top wide receiver out there. I don't expect Maurice Harris to play in this game. So I don't know if Philip Dorsett is going to play in this game. So it is still going to be a very slim group at wide receiver. But if Jacoby Myers can continue to impress with Tom Brady's quarterback in that all-important 3rd preseason game, then, I think that does kind of increase his chances of being a starter. But I'll also be looking to see who is going to be the starting tight end in this game as well. I'm not sure if Matt LaCosse is going to be ready to come back from his injury, so we might be talking about Ryan Izzo or Lance Kendricks being that top tight end if the Patriots don't want to put Ben Watson in that role.
Absolutely. And back to the receivers for a second, you could see the exact same receiving core that the Patriots trotted out last week come out again this week, especially if all of those individuals who were dealing with various injuries are still dealing with those ailments. I mean, I would be a little surprised if Edelman or Demaryius Thomas sees action in this game, just because they're kind of so freshly back onto the active roster. I guess you can never really put anything past Julian Edelman, but I think this is a huge game for Braxton Berrios. Right now, I if I had to make a roster projection right now, I would have him off of the 53-man roster, but he definitely still has a chance of snagging that final receiver spot, especially if he excels at punt return, kick return. He's looked pretty good as a punt returner overall this summer, and maybe the Patriots would be kind of We say this every year, but maybe they would be wary of using Julian Edelman in that spot again. So this is going to be a huge game for him and for a lot of these roster bubble guys, especially because if the Patriots receiver situation is the same as it was last week, Berrios should get legitimate playing time, while a lot of those other roster bubble guys might not come onto the field until third quarter or even the fourth quarter.
Right, yeah, I would probably expect the starting receivers to be Jacoby Myers, Braxton Berrios, and I don't even know who the third guy's going to be. Dorsett if he's healthy. If not, I don't know.
I forgot that Dontrell Inman isn't here anymore.
Might be Gunnar Olszewski or it could be Damone Patterson, one of those guys. But I'm going to get into the defense in a second because I do want to discuss what the starting group is going to look like in that third preseason game. But let's talk about Josh Gordon really quick right now because he is on the non-football injury list. That means that he either didn't pass his physical, didn't pass his conditioning test, is dealing with some sort of injury, or maybe the Patriots try to save him. And there's kind of two thoughts on this one. The first of which is that don't save him, see what you can possibly get out of him because you never know when, he's going to get suspended again or if he, can't stay clean or can't stay on the field. The other thought process is, do we want to thrust this guy into the offense and be a key component for Tom Brady and then remove him if something does happen? And maybe we give him a 6-week trial period to start the season to prove that he can stay clean, that he can stay, out of trouble off the field. And I don't know. I mean, I could kind of go either way with this one. Part of me says get as much as you want out of him, but that feels almost kind of callous to me to be like, all right, we're going to drive this guy into the ground and, just hope that he maintains his health and hope that he maintains his mental health. I don't think, if we're thinking about what's best for Josh Gordon, I don't know if that is the best thing. And I almost think that, saying, all right, prove yourself for 6 weeks and then we'll get you back on the field, that might wind up being the best thing for Gordon and his mental health, just to prove to everyone that he can stay out of, trouble is not the right word, but it's the best one I can come up with right now, to get back on the field.
Yeah, I mean, I'm obviously not really qualified to make this determination, but to me, it seems in my mind that having him, as long as he's healthy and as long as he is ready to go, I feel like it would be better to have him engaged with the team during those 6 weeks, because while he's on the non-football injury list, he'll still be with the team. He's not suspended during that period. He's not allowed to attend practices or anything like that. He can do all of the team activities, but he can't practice. He can't play in the games. It depends on the player's mindset, but I just feel like it's more difficult to remain kind of engaged and locked in when you're not kind of in it every single day, especially if you're healthy enough to do so. Yeah. And I don't know, I feel like it's, again, not my decision to make, but I feel like in my mind it seems like the best situation for him and the team would be him kind of in there full go 100% kind of fully engaged during these 6 weeks. But we'll see. We'll see if they
I think that ultimately what it comes down to is how much does Bill Belichick feel it's a detriment if you put Josh Gordon in the offense and then suddenly have to pull him away, and how much of a detriment that was to them when that happened last season. Obviously they still won the Super Bowl, but I don't know what Bill Belichick's mindset on that is of, do we trust this guy to be our number 2 wide receiver if we know that could all be taken away in 5, 6, 7 weeks, whatever it would be.
But they're going to have that same dilemma in week 7 if they wait for him. There's I think
it could still
the Patriots have to be operating under the fact that anything they get from Josh Gordon is kind of bonus, or if it's not like that, maybe it at least has to be that they know that this could fall apart at any moment. So they need to have a kind of a fallback plan. Even if Josh Gordon does begin the season as their number 2, number 1 wide receiver, they have to know that he can kind of be taken away at any moment throughout the season. Hopefully that does not happen for Josh Gordon's good, because that would mean he's kind of staying on the correct path here. But I think they're going to still have that same dilemma no matter when you put him in this season. So if Bill Belichick thinks he's ready now, I think it would be smart to kind of get him in there right now. But again, that's all going to be kind of the internal conversations with Josh Gordon of how healthy he is, how sort of prepared to play he is. But I don't know, if I had to predict, I would say that he's probably on the roster.
I probably
in week
would
one.
too, ultimately. Yeah.
But yeah, this is going to be a closely monitored situation for however long Josh Gordon is with the team. And again, for his sake, hopefully it's for the whole year. But it's definitely something where the Patriots can't really. They have to kind of take it week by week with him.
Looking at this defense leading up to this game against the Panthers, I would say that the projected starters would probably be, if they come out in a nickel, it would be Michael Bennett and Lawrence Guy on that defensive line. It would be Dante Hightower, Kyle Van Noy, Jamie Collins, and probably Jawan Bentley at linebacker. And then it would be Jason McCourty, Stephon Gilmore, Jonathan Jones at cornerback, and Devin McCourty, and maybe Patrick Chung at safety. Chung's still been wearing that red non-contact jersey, so maybe he's not ready to go. I think that would probably thrust, Terrence Brooks?
Most likely.
Terrence Brooks or Daron Harmon, depending on which way the Patriots want to go with that safety spot. But, I mean, there are some... Well, I think Danny Shelton also could be involved. He seems to be above Mike Pennell on that nose tackle depth chart. So if they come out in a base defense, we'd probably see Danny Shelton, who's had a really strong summer, there as a starter. The other thing is just that Chase Winovich will have a bigger role in this game because we have not seen him practice this week. Shalik Calhoun and Derek Rivers, who got injured in the Patriots' last preseason game, they probably won't play. And the other guy who's probably not going to play is Trent Harris. We haven't seen him this week either. So Chase Winovich is probably going to be running with either that first or second team at outside linebacker, and that will be a good test for him to see if he can produce as much as he did last week and in week one in the preseason against kind of second and third teamers.
Absolutely, yeah, because while he did get some early reps in that last preseason game, his first kind of impact play didn't come until the Titans' second offensive line and second offense were on the field. So yeah, it will be very kind of revealing to see how he fits into that first team defense if he does get any run in there, and as you mentioned, how he fares against kind of Christian McCaffrey and Cam Newton on the other side of the field and the Panthers starting offensive line.
For sure. I think that pretty much does it for this week. I think we covered all of our bases here. Is there anything else that you think that we have not tackled?
I think that does pretty much cover it. I mean, is there any one particular player that you haven't mentioned yet that you're really kind of keying in on in this game?
I mean, tight end is always interesting. It'll be good to see if Eric Saubert can take another step forward. He's the new tight end in there. Other than that, not really. I think Mike Pennell's interesting to watch.
I was just going to mention Mike Pennell.
Just because he really hasn't done much this summer. I think that we're all still kind of penciling him onto that 53-man roster because there's not a better nose tackle option. But if David Perry or if Nick Thurman can start making some plays at nose tackle, maybe they could push Mike Pennell for a roster spot. Or if the Patriots want to go kind of lighter at that defensive tackle group, then they could keep Danny Shelton, Lawrence Guy, Adam Butler, and then Byron Cowart. But Cowart, even just kind of seeing him around the locker room, he's listed at 293. He's definitely on the smaller side and is probably going to be playing more of defensive end in the Patriots defense. So Patriots almost have to keep Pennell unless they want to keep Perry or Thurman at that nose tackle position.
Definitely. Also going to be looking at Dietrich Wise. I think he's still a guy that's right there on the roster bubble.
Yeah.
I can really see it going either way with him. As we mentioned before, doesn't really have an obvious fit in the current defense that the Patriots are running. But you look at some of those other injuries to the edge rushers, even though they don't really play the same position. Maybe if you're not going to have Shalik Calhoun or Derek Rivers or Trent Harris going to be in that kind of roster conversation, maybe it opens up a space for Dietrich Wise, even if he's not going to be used in exactly the same way. But I think these are a very big 2 weeks for Dietrich Wise.
One final one, Duke Dawson, last year's second-round pick. Another guy who's on the roster bubble. I think on most 53-man roster projections, he's on the outside looking in. But he was a second-round pick last year, so obviously the Patriots liked him quite a bit. They were going to give him every possible opportunity to make that team. So he's another one who I would certainly like to see him come out and have a good week just to be able to prove that he does deserve a spot on the roster. But we will be back here next week, probably either Tuesday or Wednesday, recording a podcast, recapping everything that happened against the Panthers, and then previewing the Patriots' fourth preseason game against the Giants, when we'll probably also be talking about a lot of roster cuts because a lot of things will become a lot more clear in this game. We'll definitely know who's, at the top of the depth chart based on who's starting in this game.
Yeah, closing in on cutdown day.
Absolutely.
Flying up there.
It is August 31st. So we will be back. Thank you for listening. Keep it on NESN.com for all of your Patriots coverage. Follow Zach on Twitter at ZachCoxNESN. Follow me on Twitter at Doug Kide.